And it seems to me you wrote a play called Candle in the Wind. And here it is, translated from Russian. I would have liked to have seen it, oh, but it was banned. The censors took your play away and threw it in the can. Doo-doo-dum, ba-da-da-dum, dum-da-dum-dum. Aleksandr Solzhenitsyn's Ghost, if you're listening, and I apologize for that. Not the most respectful way to start this video, but this is my next book review, Candle in the Wind by Aleksandr Solzhenitsyn. And yes, I am going to say that a lot because I am very proud of the fact that I can pronounce his name somewhat correctly. And I read this book. As you can see, it has the green badge of achievement on there that indicates that I read it. And it was not long. It was only about 150 pages, and it was a play, so there was a lot of spacing in there. I do have to say, I didn't really enjoy this book all that much, and I'm going to get into why. It has nothing to do with Aleksandr Solzhenitsyn's abilities as a writer. He's actually one of the great writers of the 20th century. He was a Russian dissident, Russian freedom activist. And that was back when being an activist actually meant something. Like back before, when you heard somebody say that they're an activist, before that made you roll your eyes. I mean, this guy sacrificed years of his life and risked his life and his freedom and his well-being many times to fight for his country, fight for Russia to become free and overturn the communism and the dictatorship that was the Soviet Union. So, and for the most part, he wrote nonfiction and kind of books that were novels, but were very heavily based on fiction. So, autobiographical novels. And this book is somewhat autobiographical. The main character, Alex, has a kind of a similar life story to well, and his name was Alex, too, so I didn't even notice that. But, yeah, very similar life story. He was in the Russian military, and he was falsely accused of a crime, spent some time in jail, got out, but while he was incarcerated, he learned the value of living a simple, minimalistic lifestyle, and became, I guess you'd say, sort of enlightened while he was away. And then he gets out and he reconnects with his family and his uncle and his aunt by marriage and his cousin. And his cousin's I keep forgetting. I think there's a list of characters here. Is it Alda? I think it's Alda. Yes, Alda. She is his cousin and sort of his love interest. So I guess that was more acceptable back then. But she has a lot of emotional issues. And Aleksandr ends up landing a job at a university in the cybernetics department, doing biofeedback experiments, which are basically using technology to affect people's brainwaves and change their personality and stuff. And at first he's very enthusiastic about Alda being a test subject because it could very much help her with, coping with her life. But he grows to regret that decision as time goes on. And I'm kind of struggling here because I have to say, I like I said, I didn't really enjoy the book. In the introduction is actually written by the translator. And the translator himself actually admits that this play, if it were ever actually produced, would not have been a very good play. Just because of the awkwardness of the way that it was written and the issues that would have come up with the production, putting what's in the play to the stage. it would have been an issue. The humor doesn't really translate well. I kept trying to decide whether the awkwardness of the writing is because it was translated from Russian, or if it's just that Solzhenitsyn was trying to do something that he just wasn't very good at, which was kind of write in this kind of, I don't know, humorous kind of, almost in some cases farcical way, and he just wasn't good at that, I don't think. But it's hard to tell for sure. I would have to really delve more into the details of his life to know. And I really don't know all that much about him, just kind of what's in the little biography they have here at the end of the book about the author. I'll read to you on the back here. It says, "This play is yet another testimony to Solzhenitsyn's faith in the human spirit and his deep concern for mankind. It deals with a great moral question, the obligation of the individual to defend himself and others against the forces of government and technology," which is one of my favorite subjects, and it's a great subject for a novel. I think some of the best novels I've ever read have been dystopian novels. But I think there are better dystopian novels than this book, honestly. Even if they're 2 or 3 times longer, they're just better reads than this book, even though it's fairly short. Much in the play is touching because it is autobiographical. Distinct resemblance between the hero Alex, a scientist recently released from prison, and Solzhenitsyn. Alex's concern for a young woman, the subject of biofeedback experiments, is Solzhenitsyn's concern for the individual battling monstrous powers. So it's still relevant even today, although of course these days we're fighting algorithms and things like that as opposed to cybernetics and biofeedback experiments. But the overall theme is very much the same. I mean, it's something that I think that for over 100 years people have been expressing concern about, is technology kind of boy, I'm really getting flustered here, but you get what I'm saying. Technology kind of taking away rights from the individual, we'll just say that. But anyway, I think there were a couple of lines that I highlighted here. I really only read a couple of pages of this a day. I mean, that's how hard it was for me to get through. It just didn't really, the way it was written just didn't resonate with me. But I think I'll just let that go. There weren't really any lines in the book that really jumped out at me. But one last thing I wanted to mention is, the title of the play, obviously, Candle in the Wind. The first thing I think of as somebody who grew up in the late 20th century is Elton John's song Candle in the Wind. And it got me thinking, the original version of that song was about Marilyn Monroe. And this play was actually written in, I think, 1961. 1962. 1960. So Monroe was very much alive at that time. And if this play had made it to the West in time, and if some producer had really gotten behind it and turned it into a movie, Marilyn Monroe could have very easily starred in this film as Alda, and it very well might have been her last movie role, because she died in 1962. So that could very well have been that, if that play had been adapted into a movie and then she had been cast in it, that could have turned in an alternate universe, that could have been her last movie. And then that made me wonder, well, in that universe, did Elton John stick with the name Candle in the Wind for his song, or did he go with something else? In some ways it would have been more fitting, but then he might have also felt like it was too obvious of a name or something like that. But anyway, I think I'm going to wrap this up pretty quickly here. I'm just going to see if anything else really comes to mind. It's very wordy. There's a lot of dialogue and a lot that's just doesn't really resonate with me. You expect it to be very philosophical, but it's not so much. And the dialogue is just, it just comes across as unnatural. And again, that might just be because it's translated, might also be because Solzhenitsyn isn't used to writing this kind of style. He isn't used to writing a drama like this. You know, from what I understand, he's really more into writing kind of accounts, non-fictional accounts. But anyway, I'll go ahead and wrap this up. I'm glad that I read it. I feel like I have bragging rights now because I did read it. Okay, I remember what I was going to say. I really kind of just skimmed the last few pages because I was so ready for it to be over that I skimmed the last few pages. But I'm still going to count this as a book that I've read because I did read the last few pages. I was just so eager to get it done that I really skimmed through them. But anyway, you know, I mean, I feel like I have a little bit of more prestige as a person for having read this, but at the same time, I can't say I enjoyed it. You know, like, if you're going to read one of his books, I would say read like the Gulag Archipelago or one of the, something that's a little bit more kind of classic Solzhenitsyn instead of this kind of diversion. And that song that I made, that song parody I did at the beginning, it is true. I mean, this play was never produced in Russia because the censors had one look at it and they were just it was immediately rejected. There was no possibility of this ever being produced in the Soviet Union. So anyway, that's all I have to say about it. I'd love to hear what you guys think of Solzhenitsyn, and make sure to like and comment and subscribe to Captain Unusual for more videos. And you will be seeing a few more book reviews pretty soon. I know that I only do one of these like every couple of months. You'll actually be seeing them a little bit more often because I have a couple more books that I'm almost done with. One of them also pertaining to Russia, but both of those books I'm over halfway done with. So you'll see more book reviews than you've typically been seeing in the future. So thanks for watching.